taking the honey from the bees should happen between September 15th and October 15th. So that's when the bees have really done what they're going to do. The wildflowers just froze last night. We had a hard frost. And now it's time to take any honey that's in these supers, because you don't want the bees to move into the smaller box. You want to keep them in the big box. And we happen to have a small box here instead of a big box, but most people have 2 deeps. So now let's see what we have for honey harvest. Propolis is a good thing. Keeps the hive very antibiotic. It's from pine pitch, and look at it, it's just like gum. And this hive has a lot of propolis. You take the outer cover and use it upside down, sort of a tray. If you need to put a super on there, you don't want to put the super directly on grass or directly on the ground, because bees are usually underneath. Smoke. Just enough to let them know you're coming. And as you see out here, they've been kicking the drones out. Time for the boys to leave, because there's not enough food for the boys in the winter. So they have been booted. This is the inner cover. Notice that we're going to be turning this around so this front vent hole faces the bees. They're actually going to use this vent hole if the snow gets too deep on the bottom. The bees. You don't want to lose any of them, so I'll put them right here. So they'll just stay on that board. Now we're going to look to see what we have for honey. First one out is the toughest one, especially with the propolis. We look for one that's easy to move. Maybe this one's easier. Pretty tight. You can't move them. They're not coming out. So let's try to move this one. Some hives have more propolis than others. New England, we have propolis. Let's try this lifter, which is the only way to get out this kind of a tough pull. See, it's so gummy. Is to lift them out. There's another tool, but it doesn't work as well as this Slim Jim. And you have to miss the rail. You have to get it between the rail and the frame. Try that. Push it in. No, it's not ready. Go all the way down, and then you jack it. It's really gonna be hard. Whoops. Good job. Out. It'll come, so to speak. You really don't want to let it drop back down, because the bees will get injured.
Oh my gosh.
There's one. You see why it was difficult? It's actually stuck to the one next to it, and it's a little bit drippy.
Should we get the bags?
No, but just put it in that empty
Okay.
super. We could put it in there. Is it?
No.
Take the bees. Brush them off.
Do you want the brush?
Yeah, a bee brush would be great. Really want them to go back home. As you see, I shouldn't be standing in front of the hive. Is there room over here for me?
Not much.
You know, fly back on just as fast as we brush them off, so. Get them back in the hive. This one's difficult because it's got sticky. Otherwise it's pretty easy. It's not sticky. Let's see how they get stuck in here. This is too close, so they'll find it again. See how fast
I
they
have the
find it?
bags up here.
This is really important not to let them ding into each other.
Yeah.
So the bags are good, but they do tend to ding each other and they get start dripping. Okay. Another one. This one here, pretty much see that it's not, they sort of ignored the one on the end. That's very often the case. It's pretty much abandoned. So we don't have to worry about that one. And now, taking just the ones that are capped. Now that you get one out, certainly, certainly not as difficult of a job. And you just see this one hasn't been done dinged up too badly, so they'll brush off much easier. Sometimes you can just tap them off because it's so slippery. Sometimes they just tap off. Let's try that. Don't smash them. That's pretty good. And then they'll find it so fast. I'm gonna run over here before they discover it's missing. Little Winnie the Pooh trick. If it's right next to the hive, they'll discover it very quickly. They'll discover that in about 10 to 15 minutes, so that's why you work quickly. There's other ways to get the bees off these frames. And if you have time, there's a thing called an escape board, which is under here, and overnight the bees will crawl down to be where it's warmer, because they don't want to stay in the upstairs attic where it's cold. It does not work on a warm night. It has to be a cold night, and it has to be put on about 5 o'clock at night the night before, and by 10 o'clock the next morning, the bees are pretty much have evacuated down to where it's warm. So if you have a lot of these to do, that's the way to go. There's also another thing which I don't use anymore. I used it once and I didn't like it. It's called a fume board. And what you do is you put a smell that they don't like. It's called Bee Quick or Bee Go on this board. And you only leave it on for 10 minutes. But it is very, very upsetting smell to the bees, and they will abandon the honey because of the smell. But I'm not sure how many actually look very good after they breathe this stuff in, and I don't really know if they say they survived, but I don't know. Didn't like it. It seems so much more friendly to do it this way if you have time. And most of the people that I'm teaching are beginners, and you're not going to have more than maybe you wouldn't have more than 10 probably, unless you have more than one hive. This is the way to do it. If you have one hive and you're a first-year beekeeper, you don't have to buy anything. I shouldn't do this because not everybody can do what I do. I shouldn't pick up the bees with my bare hands. Don't do that. Wear gloves. 3. I'm going to show you the next one, show you what capped honey looks like in case you don't know. It's 100% covered with a wax cap, and it's called capped honey. And if it's not capped, you don't want to grab it because it's too wet. Honey, when it's capped, is under 20% moisture or water, and when it comes out of the plant, it's 50% moisture. That's not honey. It's not honey until it's under 20% moisture, which is somehow the bees know when it's time to cap it, and it's always dry when they cap it. Okay, the caps are those white coverings on the honey. Now right there, but over here you'll see the caps here, and in here we don't see that they made any honey, but we have to make sure they haven't put, the queen hasn't been up here putting brood up here. So look in there, make sure there's no sign of life. We don't want to take the queen with us by mistake. And then this is a lot of bees, so we can tap them off. Just don't kill them when you do this, to make sure nobody's in the way. And then the ones that are still left on here, you can brush them down here if you think there's too much activity there. They can always go back in the hive later. Sometimes they just fly back. Don't put them on the grass. Brush them onto a tarp or a cover to keep them from getting lost. Number 4. See the nice caps? And underneath the caps, look. See the honey's under here. And that's what you're going to cut off when you extract. Cut the caps off. And then you can extract with a spinner. Or you can just, don't have very many, just smash them up. And put new wax in the spring. Notice I'm not smoking them again because they don't seem to be that aggravated. You can tell by the sound of their frustration, by the sound of how loud it is, and it's not loud. Not much here. Knock them off.
Yeah, why don't you hand it to me? Well, they're starting to find it over here, Nancy.
Okay, now they start to find. Nothing much here. Look at little drones are being born.
Oh, no.
They don't have much of a chance. Girls aren't going to take care of them. So that means the queen was here 24 days ago. And the reason she put drones up here is because it's not perfect. It's not perfect hexagons. So I'll be the midwife. Which one gets born? There he is. It's a good, since you're watching drones be born, it's good to check their bodies for signs of mites. This one, very lethargic because it's cold. And do we see anything wrong with his wings?
Looks good.
Looks pretty good to me.
Yeah.
So that's a good sign that the drones are not being, I'll throw them, give them a couple of days.
Yeah.
Take care of them for a few days. There's a bunch more being born. See this one? And they were struggling to get out of their little cap, and they don't sting, so you can pretty much look at them without fear. See any mites? No, but you can see his little underside. That's his little sex machine. That's how they impregnate the queen, and he doesn't survive mating. Does not keep that. So, sort of a one-night event. There's another one. Drones have big eyes. They're big. When I first started beekeeping, I thought they were queens because they're big. But the eyes give them away. See how big their eyes are?
Oh, yeah.
And they have a hairy bee backside. See?
Oh, yeah.
And they have their little boy part. No stinger. One or the other. You can't have both. Another boy. Happy birthday! Born at the wrong time though.
It was really warm a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, a couple of days. They'll take care of them for a couple of days. They do throw them out. Some coming out over here, look. The 24-day period before they come out, and that means that 24 days ago the queen came up here by because she just bored or something, and she laid eggs up here, but they're not female because the structure was too bumpy and large. Only girls get born in perfect hexagons. Very fussy about the hexagon. Female bees. Oh my goodness. Now it's just before Halloween, right between now and Thanksgiving, and when you winterize your hive, depending on the climate you live in, the bees really need to be given back a simple syrup solution, thicker than the spring, 1.5, 1 3/4 cups sugar to 1 cup water, melted into syrup. You gotta make at least a gallon, probably 2 gallons before Thanksgiving, because after Thanksgiving it's too cold and the bees will not sip syrup in cold weather. It has to be like right around 45, 50 for them to sip the syrup. But once you finish sipping the syrup, I'll tell you what to do. But first, we want to see how beautiful this hive is. This is a hive that's very, very healthy. I looked at the mites here. Try to count the mites by actually looking at some drone brood here that has not gotten time to hatch, and the little bodies are white, and you can roll. It's a purple-eyed stage. They were about 5 days from hatching, and I feel a little bit bad that I poked them out of their cells, but I did want to see if their bodies had on their bodies little red brownish looking mites. You can fit about 3, you can see them, they're not microscopic, you can fit 3 or 4 little red dots, like little pieces of red pepper on the back of that bee, would mean you had mites. If you see them on the drones, you have to treat. I poked out this drone, and I poked out 2 or 3 other ones, and look, I don't see any sign of the varroa mite. It's really good news, but it's not foolproof evidence, so I am going to treat them anyway, just because, for a couple of dollars. There's a product called ApiGuard, which is kind of a gel, and it's a menthol gel. Let's see, all you need is one little packet for this hive. And, you know, I could say there's no mites, but if you don't see any, you probably have 100. And if you see 10, you probably have 1,000. So the fact I don't see any is great, but for $5, it doesn't hurt to treat them. This is a jelly, smells like menthol. It's got menthol, eucalyptus, and camphor and a gel. And because you have to pull this paper off, and why waste it? What I tell people to do with this gel, and why not, let the bees crawl on it, right? Doesn't hurt, right on the entrance. And then that doesn't have to be taken out because before you know it, they'll have crawled on it and it's evaporated. This one here has to evaporate, but you don't put it on the bees because it will drip down and I don't want it being wasted. So it has to stay upright in its little container. And it goes on top of the inner cover. So first you put the inner cover on. We're going to winter this hive by putting the inner cover on first. Let's not squash the bees. We want to drive them back into their frames so they don't smash them putting the cover on. Okay. Now another trick is, don't put this down fast. Put it down a little bit kitty cornerish. And
You're
you
clear on
watch.
this side. Yeah.
Watch where you're not going to smash them. And it's really great. Take a bee brush and save their lives. As you push it, you just sort of save them from getting squished. Very slowly. Also smoke works for this too. What did I do?
Good. It's good.
I don't think I smashed anybody. Always makes me feel bad being a beekeeper and smashing them. Okay, now this I told you about, gooey stuff, goes right under the inner cover, right about here. The bees can crawl on it. I like to put it back a little further. I don't like the smell of it too much. I'll put it right about here. Find it. And the hole is down so they can come out in the winter if the snow gets too deep. Down there. We are going to restrict this entrance with a stick or
Here,
the entrance reducer, which is official. This is the official don't use. It's too small for this part of the climate. I'm going to use the 4-inch side. And I don't push it in. I'm just going to use it as a wind block. The bees can still have a little bit of relief from the wind. And now, because we're going to feed these bees syrup, any honey you take away, let's say you take away a gallon, you put back a gallon of sugar syrup. We take the $10 a pound stuff and give back that $1 a pound stuff. Makes sense to me. They don't care where their carbohydrates come from. And this is a feeder box. You can use an old one, or you can make one, or you can buy a spare one. Put your feeder jar in. The same thing, you don't want to smash.
this guy's stuck. he stuck on? There he is.
Bucks. And inside there, here's the syrup we're talking about. And you know, you can have an official feeder. Maybe you have an inside feeder, maybe you have a top bar feeder, maybe you have a top hive feeder, but I'm pretty much very inexpensive. A mason jar with 10 or so holes tapped into the cover, not too big. And then I raise it up just about a clothespin size for some kind of shims right in here. There. And the bees are going to be probably sucking about a quart every 3 or 4 days down into their hive. And this is just an insurance, just in case you took too much of their honey. This is save them. Now after November 15th, let's say it's you're making pies. Well, I tell people how to make fondant. Same as making a pie, except instead of putting water and flour, you put water in powdered sugar. About a pound is about 2 cups of powdered sugar, and very, very carefully, very little water, and you make a dough out of it. Then you roll it out between 2 sheets of wax paper or saran wrap, because you don't want to get it all over your fingers, and it rolls out nice and flat, just flat enough so it can go right next to that medicine, right around the 15th of November. Then the syrup comes out.
Do you want to freeze it, the fondant?
No.
You just do you leave it on the wax paper?
That's because you leave it on, well, you can pull the top of the wax paper off.
Yeah.
Because in saran wrap, they can't chew through. So wax paper or parchment paper is better.
Okay.
But if
So you slide, you take the top off,
take the top
and you
off,
slide
the
it,
bees crawl up,
but you
it slides in like
and the wax paper's underneath
wax
it, so you're
paper is
sliding
keeping
it.
it from falling down through.
Okay, perfect.
It's like a little
Like a disc.
it's a disc like pie dough, and it stays on the wax paper because otherwise it would fall apart. And the bees can come and chew that fondant all the way until February, and then March 1st, 2nd, 5th, and if it's above like 50 degrees, you start syrup feeding them again until you can actually open it right around April 15th. Now, let's insulate this hive. It's too vulnerable, especially in the northeast here. So we get tar paper, or we're going to use
Hay
we're going
bales.
to use bales of hay.
Should I use both?
No, bales of hay or tar paper, because you just want it to breathe, but you want it to be blocked from the wind. This building here is blocking a lot of wind. But over here, we have to put something up against the hive. Hay bales work great, or you're going to just buy some of that blue or green board from Home Depot. It's about this thick, it's stiff, and you can put that around the beehive. But remembering, you must cut out the bottom and you must cut out the hole. Otherwise they get too, they'll suffocate.
And that box, when you put the fondant in, that feeder box will come off.
Well,
After when you put the fondant in, will this come off, or do you leave this all winter?
what I like to do, if you have an extra box, or if you can have something you make, it doesn't have to be this tall, it can be just this tall. I like to put a box up here just because I'm using it to wick moisture from the natural beehive. And even if your jar remains here, it's empty. And anything that's going to fall down that inner cover hole is going to be not a great idea. So you're going to just put shavings around, wood chips,
And leave
some
the
kind
jar
of
so it doesn't-
homicide. Leave the jar there because you're going to be using it again. Why?
So you just leave it there also so that nothing falls down the
With
hole.
no syrup in it.
Right, but not so that nothing falls down the
You
hole.
don't want anybody falling down any debris
The
falling
sawdust
down
or
the
anything.
hole. If it's shavings or sawdust or some kind of a
Or like
loose homicide kind of material.
or what about
But if you use newspapers,
pellets? What about pellets for a wood stove?
I've never thought about that, but you know what?
I have some. I can show it to you. Because then the
I think that's a good idea because I use pellets for my stalls,
yeah,
and that wicks up all kinds of moisture.
right,
I've never used them.
and
That
it wouldn't
sounds like a
blow
great
around
idea.
so much.
No, it's just like put them in there. That wicks the moisture up. I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Not the hard pellet. The hard pellet just doesn't get that soft. But the soft pellets
Yeah.
that they use for like
For a pellet
wood
stove.
stoves and stuff.
Oh, okay. Oh, those kind of pellets.
The hard pellets for wood stoves are not. I don't. Is that what you have?
Yeah, but I can show you and you can see what you think.
Well, we could try it.
When they get wet, they just puff right up.
Okay, so you've seen that happen. So
Yeah,
let's use
because
that.
I leave them out in the rain.
Because I've seen them. I've seen them like in packages that are dysfunctional, and they're trying to sell them.
Oh.
And they won't burn, but they'll probably be great. I use them for my stalls because I
Oh.
figure they're already wet, right?
Right?
But you can put them in here and see if that wicks the moisture up.
Okay.
Anything in there, and then that also leaves that open for the bees. That's open for the bees, and then the cover goes on top. And anytime the snow gets over this level, you have to kind of shovel
Clear it
away.
out.
Now, every month, January 1st, February 1st, and March 1st, guess what? The old senior citizen bees can't hang on when they get to be over 100 days old. They're pretty much not able to hang on to the warm cluster, and they drop. If a lot of them drop, the healthy bees can't get out. There's too many to push out of the way, so I have a little coat hanger or something, or an old windshield wiper works great. You just stick it in there, scrape the dead bees out. January 1st, February 1st, and March 1st.